Thank you all for joining our virtual information session. Today, we are going to showcase University of Denver. Our presentation is on undergraduate admission tips and tricks. So we have Adin Ahmed. Adin Ahmed, I think is the right time now. You can introduce yourself and start the presentation. Thank you all.
All right. Yeah, thank you so much, Nora. Hello, everybody. Greetings from Denver, Colorado. My name is Adil Ahmed. I am an assistant director of international admission at the University of Denver, or DU, as I'll kind of shorten it. But yeah, I'll give kind of a brief presentation about DU, and then we'll have some time for Q&A afterwards. But yeah, thank you to Education USA for having me. At the University of Denver, we like to sum up our undergraduate student experience in what we call the 4D experience, right? You can see literally 4 Ds. So, one, help deepen your intellect. Two, help you develop your well-being. Three, help you discover your character. And then four, help you design a career and life of purpose. So I hope you guys can kind of see these four dimensions, these 4 Ds throughout my presentation. At the University of Denver, we are a mid-sized private university located in Denver, Colorado. Colorado is the state in the U.S. that you can see in white. They're kind of towards the middle of the country. Most of our students do come from within the state of Colorado. However, we have about 5,700 undergraduate students pursuing a bachelor's degree, and then a little over 6,000 graduate students pursuing a master's or doctoral degree. And our students do come from all corners of not only the US, but even the globe. We have over 100 countries represented among our student body. And then we even offer transfer admissions. If you're already studying at a college or university and would like to transfer to DU to finish your bachelor's degree here, you can do that. About 10% of our undergraduate students are transfer students. One of the most unique aspects about DU is that our academic calendar, actually, where so most universities, at least in the US, are on a traditional semester system, where in the fall and spring they will have about a 15-week semester, again in fall and then in spring. We actually do things a little differently. So we're on the quarter system, and not many universities are on like a quarter or trimester system. So we're one of the few, definitely, one of, if not the only university in the state of Colorado on the quarter system. But we do three 10-week quarters in the fall, winter, and spring. Okay, so there's a few reasons we do this. I'll talk more about like academically what that looks like on the next slide. But I think for international students, especially, first and foremost, kind of their between fall and winter quarters. You are reading that right. We do offer a full 6-week winter break. So between Thanksgiving holiday and then New Year's, you have that entire time off of school, the full month and a half off, which we're very happy to give that generous of a winter vacation to our students. I know especially for students coming from out of town or even out of the country, that can make visiting home a lot easier. So you can go visit family for an extended amount of time. We do give you 1 week off for spring break between winter and spring quarters, and then we're currently in our spring quarter, which does end a little bit later compared to other universities, so in early to mid-June. However, we also start a little bit later after Labor Day holiday in early September. So you still get a full 3-month summer vacation. We have an optional summer quarter. If you would like to take classes over the summer, you can, but most students will just stick to the fall, winter, and spring quarters and still graduate on time within 4 years. Um, I'm not going to mention like every single major and minor we offer at DU because we have well over 100. So please, I'll leave some contact information towards the end, but please feel free to check our website if there's a specific academic program you're looking for. But just generally, are like 6 or so colleges that offer undergraduate academic programs will include the College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences, the College of Natural Sciences and Mathematics. We have our Daniels College of Business, our Joseph Corbell School of Global and Public Affairs, our Ritchie School of Engineering and Computer Science, and then even our Graduate School of Professional Psychology offers a newer kinesiology and sports studies major that's available to undergraduate students. And at DU, another reason we're on the quarter system and kind of one of the big benefits of the quarter system is the quarters are more fast-paced, and you actually end up taking more classes than a lot of other college students or university students. So it's very easy and actually very common for DU students to double major, to pursue, you can see this sample degree plan. One of our current student interns, she's a communication major. She has a dual minor in Spanish language and business. So you can easily pursue multiple areas of study and still graduate on time within 4 years. I would say DU is kind of the perfect school if you're, thinking about multiple majors like engineering and art or music and business, right? If you want to pursue two completely different things, you can more than likely easily do both and still graduate, on time. We also foster the liberal arts philosophy of we want you to be a well-rounded student and person. So even if you are an engineering major, we have a common curriculum, right? We want you to take at least a class or two in humanities. And even if, vice versa, you are like an English major or a history major, and we want you to take at least a class or two in STEM. And there's even room for elective courses. So if you want to take, like a one-off kind of ceramics class, or you're just interested in taking like a philosophy class, even if you don't necessarily want to major in art or philosophy, you can do that at DU. We try to make your academic schedule as flexible as we can make it. One of my personal favorite aspects about my university is that very first point on this slide. 99% of our classes are taught directly by faculty. So not by TAs, not by other instructors, but by the professors themselves. And keep in mind, we have quite a few graduate students and graduate programs as well at DU. So most of your professors probably have a PhD or a graduate degree themselves. I think that's really valuable for undergraduate students. You're learning, like kind of straight from, their area of expertise, their knowledge, their experience. Um, and professors do build very, close relationships with their students. We have a 9-to-1 student to faculty ratio. Our average class size is about 24, so our classes are pretty small. And most all classes are again going to be kind of on that smaller class size. Professors hold office hours outside of class. They certainly get to know their students, learn, your name, kind of get to know your interests. So, why are you taking their course? What are you interested in learning and getting out of the course? So yeah, I think the DU we really value that student professor kind of relationship and network building. And then at DU we really also emphasize, it's not just what you learn in a textbook in the classroom, but also what you experience outside the classroom that is so integral to an undergraduate college education. Nearly 80% of our students complete at least one internship during their time at DU. Our students logged well over 1 million hours of volunteer or community service hours last year. I'll talk about this more on some of the next slides, but we're actually a Carnegie Research 1 or R1 university. And that just means that we have very high research activity and that we award degrees all the way from bachelor's through doctoral degrees. So part of that is we have some maker spaces on campus. we really like to give our students the hands-on tools and to get experience to get that practical experience that they can put on, their resumes, on their CVs as they look into, entering the professional world or even into graduate school after they finish undergrad. One example of a makerspace is in our engineering building, our engineering school. They have what they call the Innovation Lab. It is an entire floor of 3D printers. And the cool thing is you don't need to be an engineering major or even in an engineering course. Just as long as you're a DU student, you can actually utilize the 3D printers. They even have like industrial printers. So if you need to print out like a really big like poster board for your student club or, just for any other projects you have going on, for maybe another class even, you're welcome to use that. And I think DU does a good job of, again, giving, you guys those hands-on tools to get the most out of your education. And then even between our kind of regular academic quarters, we do technically offer study options. So I mentioned over the summer, that is an optional kind of additional quarter. Even during winter break, some students will choose to, either stay on campus or even there's some like study abroad. Kind of interterm course options. So there's definitely options to, continue your studies pretty much throughout the year. But I will say again, by far most students will just stick to the fall, winter, and spring quarters to take classes. And you can still easily graduate on time, but again, just I think it's nice that these options are there for you if you're interested. And speaking of which, I mentioned this earlier, but we are a Carnegie Research One or R1 university. This is the highest tier that a university can be basically given their, like research activity. And of course, we award up through doctoral degrees. We have a $52 million research endowment. Nearly 700 of our undergraduate students currently participate in faculty-led research. Part of this commitment to further, expand research opportunities for our undergrad students is we're actually investing in a new building on campus. So I'm really sad I can't give you guys a kind of, in-person campus tour today, but to give you kind of a little sneak preview of what we have coming on campus, we're building a new STEM research building. It'll be about 87,000 square feet of primarily life science related kind of labs and facilities for those students. But please don't think it's just like STEM or science students that we invest in. We do have research and internship opportunities for all programs. I think it's a little bit later on the presentation, but we have a very wonderful career and professional development center on campus, the Burwell Center, that supports students in, any major, no matter what you're studying, no matter what kind of field you're, hoping to go into after you graduate. They are there to help you, build your resume, build your CV, your LinkedIn profile, help you prep for job and internship interviews. They offer like career fairs every quarter. So we definitely make sure that you're covered on that professional development side as well. And then I do like to talk about our area just because Denver, I think it's a really cool city, but it's definitely not one of, the most famous cities in the US. Certainly, it's not nearly as big as like New York City or Los Angeles or Chicago, but our metro area is home to about 3 million people. I actually learned this pretty recently. We're one of the top 10 largest downtowns in the US. And I would say Denver has all of the kind of typical, American big city, attractions that you would want right out of a big city. So parks, sports, concerts, museums, restaurants, all those fun things. We're actually located. I don't think it's on this slide, but we're located just about 10 to 15 minutes south of downtown Denver, in the city. So the cool thing is also not only are we in our own, like residential area, our campus is in a pretty quiet, again, kind of residential neighborhood of the city, but you also have easy access to to downtown, to the city. The other cool thing is we are very close to the Rocky Mountain Range that runs through the state of Colorado as well as several other states in the US and even up into Canada. But we have a mountain campus that just opened a few years ago, the James C. Kennedy Mountain Campus. It's located about 2 hours northwest of our campus. It is over 700 acres of forested hills. They have a number of different outdoor kind of activities and excursions that we reserve specifically for our students. We currently don't hold classes at the mountain campus. I've heard there's plans to maybe, change that in the future, which would be very exciting. But currently, we use it for student excursions and then even for faculty research. So if, again, you're taking a class or working with a professor in like ecology or geology or environmental science, your professor may very well invite you to come up and do some field research with them up in the mountain campus, which is very cool. Again, I hinted at kind of professional development, but our Burwell Center for Career Achievement supports our students with the professional development side. They've actually been ranked the 24th best career services, in the U.S. this year for university students, which we're very proud of. 94% of our students actually engage with our Career Achievement Center. Nearly 90% of our students were actually employed or admitted into graduate school. And I believe that's within 6 months to a year of graduating from last year. And then also just something kind of interesting to note, the University of Denver does contribute well over 2 billion US dollars to the Colorado state economy. I'll talk a little bit about the admission process to kind of wrap up my presentation. If you have specific questions about the admission process, about the application, I am one of the international undergraduate admission counselors at DU, so please don't hesitate to reach out to me via email afterwards. I'm happy to kind of go more in depth. But to give you a brief overview, we use the Common Application online. Many US universities use the Common Application website. We just ask that you submit one personal essay, your high school transcripts, and then one recommendation letter from your high school college counselor. There is a 65 US dollar application fee. We do offer fee waivers if you're interested in that, but that's really it. So SAT and ACT or like other standardized tests are actually completely optional. We have not required SAT or ACT for several years now. Additional recommendation letters, we welcome them, but they're not expected or required. Um, I will say for when to apply, we offer a few different options or admission rounds. November 1st every year is going to be our deadline for early action, as well as our first early decision deadline. And then January 15th is going to be our regular decision and our second early decision deadline. Early action and regular decision are non-binding rounds, and then both early decision rounds are binding rounds. And then again, we offer transfer admission as well. So we do have a deadline of June 1st or a priority deadline of April 1st if you're interested in transfer admission. Early decision, like I said, is binding. So that does mean that if you're admitted during either ED round, you are, expected to contractually, enroll at DU and pay your tuition deposit and rescind all of your other admission offers and applications. And my honest advice to students is, unless DU or any other school is your dream school and you're 110% committed to coming, to DU, I personally wouldn't recommend early decision admission just because it can kind of limit your options. But that being said, just some incentives that we offer for early decision admission. We meet full demonstrated need for our top scholars. We actually automatically award an additional $5,000 annual merit award on top of any other scholarships that we would offer you. And then, of course, you'll receive your admission and financial aid notifications sooner, and we just give stronger consideration for early decision and early action applicants. For financial assistance, so you do need to hold U.S. citizenship or permanent resident status to actually be eligible to submit the FAFSA for federal financial aid or the CSS profile for institutional financial aid. However, the cool thing is merit-based aid is automatic. So as long as you're admitted to DU, regardless of citizenship, regardless of, where you studied, anything like that, will automatically consider you for merit-based scholarships. And then even talent-based scholarships. So we are an NCAA Division I school with 17 different men's and women's D1 athletic teams. We also have a Lamont School of Music. So if you fall into either of those categories, you're a D1 student athlete or you're coming in as a music major, you may be eligible for talent-based scholarships as well. I talked about need-based financial aid earlier, so I'll kind of skip this slide. But again, if you have specific questions, please feel free to reach out. And then just like our merit aid range is about 15 to $40,000 per year. And again, there's no separate application for merit aid. Just as long as you're admitted, we automatically consider you. And even for transfer students, we'll consider you for merit aid ranging from 12 to $25,000 per year. Some rankings. I just have two more slides, so I'll try to breeze through these. But just some rankings to kind of showcase where DU shines. I One of my personal favorites is we're number 10 for most loved colleges. Our students definitely, they really enjoy their time at DU and get a lot of value out of their education and experience here. And then just a fun list of some famous alumni from who've graduated from DU. Of course, we have probably the most famous person to have graduated from our university, Condoleezza Rice. She is a former U.S. Secretary of State at the federal level in our government. Yeah, I hope to see, for the students joining us, your all's names maybe up here someday. But I believe, yeah, that is all I have. And I think we have some time now for some questions, which I'll open it up to.
Yes, thank you so much, Adin Ahmed, for a wonderful presentation. We are now in question and answer. So if you have any question, you can write your question on a chat box so that we can ask. But I have a question. Uh, in your presentation, you made mention about Merit Aid Award financial aid. But I need more information about talent-based aid. I know most of the students may need more information. Most of our international students, they need to have more information about talent-based aid.
Talent-based aid. Yeah, I can talk a bit more about talent-based aid. So, like I said, that's primarily going to be for two student populations. One, if you're recruited onto one of our NCAA Division One or D1 athletic teams. Division One is the kind of like highest or premier, I guess, like tier for NCAA collegiate level sports in the US. I will say they have a very like selective and rigorous recruitment process. The coaches typically begin recruiting, I would say like when you're either in your early junior year, maybe even late sophomore year, but it is a pretty kind of a longer process and they do start early. So if you're serious about, playing a sport that we offer at the D1 level, I would recommend getting in touch with the coach of that team as soon as you can, as soon as possible, just because, again, it's a very selective process. And it's one of those things where unless you're on the coach's radar already, just the chances of them actually getting back to you are, probably not great. They just, they're very, very focused on the like specific set of students. And again, not just in, Nigeria or in like sub-Saharan Africa, but around the world. And of course, even in the US that they're focusing on to recruit for their team. The other student population I mentioned was music students. If you sing, if you play an instrument, if you're interested in, a music major in performance, conducting, pedagogy, theory, we do offer talent-based aid for our music students. So for music majors, there is actually a small addition to the application process where they have an audition. So you do have to audition for entry into the music school. Um, Pending your, admission into our Lamont School of Music, if you are admitted, they do consider you for talent-based aid in that sense. Unfortunately, there's not really any other programs, where they will consider talent-based aid, but it's primarily going to be for D1 athletics and then music majors.
Okay, thank you so much. We have a
Yeah.
question on the chat board. It's saying, how easy is it to combine majors and minors to create a more customized academic file? How easy
Yeah.
it is?
No, absolutely. I one of my colleagues in the office was just talking last week. I think he had a student worker who graduated maybe a year or two ago, but they were, I think, a triple minor and had maybe like one, maybe even two majors. So when I say the sky is the limit at DU for what you can study, I really do mean that. Our professors, in fact, encourage you know, exploring other fields. It's not uncommon at all for our students to actually even, if you come in and you think, I'm going to major in business and that's the only thing I want to study, but maybe you take, like I don't know, like an art class or a music class, and you kind of realize like along the way, oh, I actually really enjoy this, and maybe I could minor in, art or music, or even add a double major. So our professors and our academic advisors, they do a really good job of working with our students to help you map out just degree plan over, an undergraduate program is typically 4 years. A lot of our students I see even graduate in about 3 years or, less than 4 years. So I would say it's very easy to combine different disciplines. I know like some programs like music or even especially engineering can be kind of notorious for being just very rigorous. I think at other universities, if you're an engineering major, for example, that's probably the only type of class you're going to be taking, just engineering classes. And even something like study abroad can be very just, challenging and not really feasible if you're like, say, an engineering major. But even at DU, I've heard, a lot of our like engineering students, they still are able to, take different classes. They're able to study abroad. They're able to, kind of have a more flexible schedule, and still graduate on time. So I would say, yeah, please don't shy away from looking into multiple programs at DU. We also pair you with an academic advisor during your entire time at DU, so that just gives you an extra set of eyes on your transcript, on your degree plan to make sure that you're taking the classes you need to take, you're graduating on time, things like that. So you have that support.
Okay, there's another question here on the chat box. It says, please, is this opportunity tailored strictly to undergraduate? I think he's talking about talent-based aid. Is this strictly tailored to undergraduate student?
Yes, and I'm actually gonna switch over just so folks can see my contact information. So if you have any questions, if you want to reach out with, just more information, feel free to email me at my office at intladm@du.edu. Also have our office phone number. And then if you have visa specific questions about the visa process, I would recommend reaching out to our International Student and Scholar Services office, ISSS at du.edu. So contact information is there if you guys want to copy that down. But to answer the question, with talent-based aid, yeah, so unfortunately it is going to be more like really just limited to undergraduate students. I would say for the music school, because they do offer graduate level programs. Um, don't quote me on this, but I would assume they also look at or like offer some kind of talent-based uh compensation. The thing is at the graduate level for a lot of programs, assistantships tend to be very kind of the most common way to fund your program, either a teaching assistantship or a research assistantship. So For graduate programs, my advice is always just to reach out to, that program specifically. So if you're looking into music, for instance, reach out to our Lamont School of Music and just, feel free to ask. I think the programs, the professors, they're, usually very open about and honest, about just like what funding looks like, what, like scholarship opportunities, assistantships, for grad students, what that looks like. But yeah, so a lot of this information on my slide deck, it's going to be pretty undergraduate specific though. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. There's two important questions I wanted to ask you. One is about, do you offer online courses, undergraduate degree and master's, PhD? Do you offer online? Secondly, do you have any campus outside US, like in Europe, so these are the questions
Yes,
mostly.
that's a great question. I'll answer the second one first. Unfortunately, we don't. So, our campus in Denver, Colorado is kind of our like one and only campus. We do have the Mountain campus in Colorado. However, like I said, we don't offer classes there currently, and I mean, that's just about 2 hours from campus. It's still within the state of Colorado. So no, currently we do not have any campuses outside of Colorado or outside of the US. Um, we do have quite a number of partner programs with universities across the globe for study abroad programs. So if that's something you're interested in, study abroad is very popular at DU and it is open to international students as well. You don't have to just be like a US citizen or have a US passport. Um, but yeah, so the Denver campus is kind of our one and only campus at this time. For the first question though about online programs, we do offer online and I believe as well hybrid programs. However, they're going to be more for master's programs. For bachelor's, that option just unfortunately isn't really feasible. I think the closest thing we would have is like a bachelor's completion program where if let's say you're a non-traditional student, right? Maybe you're a little bit older than, just like the high school senior or like college first year age. That's typical, right? Maybe you're a little bit older, you have a number of years like experience working, maybe you have a family. You're a non-traditional student, so we offer some kind of like online modality where you can finish your bachelor's degree, but that's about the closest thing we would offer for our bachelor's program, uh, or programs, I should say. They're essentially going to be all in person. But yeah, two very good questions, Nora.
Thank you. There's another important question here. One is thanking for a wonderful presentation. He say, I hold a postgraduate diploma in environmental toxicology and public health. What prospect is there for me to get run MSc in environmental studies? And what are the financial support opportunities available for me?
So postgraduate diploma in environmental toxicology and public health. And you're looking into an MSc in environmental studies. Like I said, for master's and graduate programs, it's going to be very program specific. My recommendation is to reach out directly to our environmental science program or department, and just ask, hey, I'm interested in, the master's program. What kind of like funding or assistantship opportunities are available. I believe on our website for graduate programs, they also have like specific admission guidelines and kind of, what you need to hold to be eligible to apply to one of our graduate programs. But it is actually a very, just frankly, a very different process than undergrad, right? Undergrad, for every program, we use the common application. For graduate programs, the application, I think, is just within the DU website, but it's going to be like what you actually have to submit. It's going to be very specific. to the actual program. So that's kind of my advice. Reach out to environmental studies and start the conversation there.
Okay, there's another question here. How flexible is doctoral STEM training program, and do you have chemistry PhD program? You say how
Yes,
flexible is your doctoral STEM, science, technology,
a
engineering, and
flexible
mathematics training
chemistry.
STEM program?
Yes, we offer master's and doctoral programs for most all of the academic undergraduate programs. Like I said, a lot of the professors that even, teach our undergrad classes, they're also teaching master's and doctoral level classes. So, for doctoral STEM training program, that's again just with grad programs, it tends to be very program specific. So that's something that you would have to reach out to the chemistry department to ask about. One other thing, I actually used to work in graduate recruitment, so I kind of can speak from some of this experience. But one of my biggest tips for inquiring into a graduate program, especially a PhD program, is look through the faculty list of the program. So, like for chemistry, for instance, if you go to our website and go to the chemistry department's page, there should be a faculty roster, a list of all the professors in that department. Um, Look through, read through their bios, read through just, kind of briefly what kind of research they're doing, and try to find a couple professors that stand out to you, just in terms of similar, maybe like research interests or, whatever it is about, that professor that, sticks out to you. And email them, reach out to them and ask them about their research. If you have follow-up questions about their program, certainly, feel free to ask. But I would say start the conversation by asking them about their research, because the relationship you have with specific professors, especially in graduate programs, that is very monumental, right? Like when it's time to assign a dissertation advisor in like a PhD program, you want to make sure that you're picking a professor that, you would get along with and work with for a number of years, and vice versa, right? That to them, you're a student that they want to work with, that they want to, invest the time and energy into supporting. Um, but I would say start with that, maybe compare like research or academic interests within, let's say, chemistry. Reach out, ask them about their research. I guarantee you, they are, professors, they're very excited to talk about their research. So that's definitely a way to kind of put yourself on their radar and for them to, be more likely to respond to your inquiries. And then start the conversation from there. And then, certainly again, you can ask more about STEM training programs, assistantships, funding, things like that. So I hope that kind of helps answer that question.
Yeah, yeah. So there's another question here. Can one apply to more than one program with one P waiver?
Yes, actually, so for undergraduate admission, you can either apply intending to major in, one subject, in potentially multiple subjects, or excuse me, even undeclared or like we call it exploratory studies, where if you have no idea what you want to study, that is completely fine. Um, I mentioned at DU with the quarter system, we make it very just flexible and very manageable to pursue different majors. That also means starting from scratch. So if you haven't, again, no idea what you want to study, you want to maybe take a quarter or your first year to take a few different types of classes and really figure out what, you're interested in, what you do want to eventually major in, you can do that. So please don't think that you have to have an exact idea of what you want to study when you apply. You can apply undeclared. and then go from there.
Okay, thank you so much. There's another question
Yeah,
here. Thank you so
great
much,
questions.
sir. Do you take PhD student in pharmaceutical sciences? And is it fully funded? What quota of Nigeria are admitted annually?
In pharmaceutical sciences,
Yeah.
I don't believe so. One kind of important stipulation I should make is we actually do not have a medical campus at DU. Uh, Again, we're a Carnegie Research One university, and I didn't mention this, but it is interesting that and I think just very we're very proud of the R1 designation because we're one of the very few universities um, that has achieved R1 status without having a medical campus. So unfortunately, a lot of programs like pharmacy, medicine, nursing, dentistry, DPT, we just don't offer a lot of those health science programs. Now, for undergraduate students, we do have pre-health tracks. So if you're interested in, finishing your bachelor's degree at DU and then maybe going into like pharmaceutical sciences and do a doctoral program. It would have to be at another university, but we have professors that can help kind of prep you for applying to a PhD program and applying to grad school. Um, for just generally, if PhD programs are fully funded, again, it's going to depend on the program. I know, PhD programs tend to be pretty well funded. I can't necessarily say if they're always fully funded, but again through just assistantships certainly uh especially for doctoral students, I think a lot of departments, a lot of programs, they do reserve a lot of their just funds for and prioritize their doctoral students, maybe over like master's students. So that's kind of something to think about. But yeah, I would again, I think it's kind of the same answer for any inquiry you have about graduate, specifically a doctoral program, please ask the department directly, because they will obviously, have more kind of detailed information about their specific grad programs than I would in undergraduate admission. Um, but yeah, and then I think the second part was of the question was if we have like a quota. We don't. We I would say typically admit, or rather enroll in undergrad admissions a class of about like 1,300 to 1,500 students each fall. That's kind of what our goal is. Um, so again, I just speaking about international students generally at DU, we really don't have like huge populations from one specific country or another. We have over 100 countries represented among our student body, and I always frame DU like this to international students. If you're hoping to come to a school where there's like 500 other Nigerian students, unfortunately, DU is just not that school. However, we have, I would say, a very diverse student body in terms of, like nationalities and backgrounds and cultures. Your roommate may be from China. Your classmate in, one of your courses, the person you sit next to, they may be from Mexico. You might sit in the dining hall next to a student from Sweden. You really never know what types of students you'll meet at DU, just because our students do come from, all corners of the US and the globe. So I would say that's where our strength is in terms of like international diversity. Just we have so many different nationalities represented. But unfortunately, we just don't have like huge representation from any one specific country or culture or anything like that.
Yes,
But yeah,
thank you
great
so
questions all
much.
around, guys. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
yeah. Okay. There is one question I wanted to ask about application processes. Uh,
Yeah.
Based on what you explained, recommendation letters is optional. And also you made mention that ACT and SAT, that international standard test, is optional. So I know
Yeah.
most of our international students, they need more information. The optional you made mention, is it optional someone can do or cannot do at all? That's the
Yeah.
question I'm talking to.
So is the question about test optional? Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I can talk more about test optional. We went test optional before the COVID pandemic. So I think since about 2019, we DU has actually been entirely test optional with undergraduate admission. If you are a good test taker and you want to take and submit the SAT and or ACT, you're welcome to. We certainly will consider your test scores if you choose to submit them. Actually, on our website, you can find the median range of both SAT and ACT that admitted students scored last year. If you fall in that range, if you're higher, obviously that, will reflect well. If you're below that range, though, my personal kind of like tip is, don't feel obligated to submit your test scores because one, it's not required, and two, if maybe you're not like the best test taker. I know I certainly wasn't when I was applying to colleges. Um, that I think that will, kind of negatively impact your application. I just don't really see a reason to, submit it if you scored not so well on SAT or ACT. The one test where I will say it matters, and we actually do look for this for international applicants. And I didn't really talk about this in the application slides, but we do have an English proficiency requirement. Now, I know for a lot of like Nigerian students and Nigerian schools, English is, pretty ubiquitously spoken. I know for countries like United Kingdom, India, Australia, Pakistan, English proficiency doesn't really tend to be too much of a concern for us because we know that a lot of, in those countries, a lot of the schools, a lot of the students, they are, utilizing English pretty regularly. But if your school's primary language of instruction is, let's say, in a language other than English, we would require you to submit some kind of proof of English proficiency. That typically will look like either official TOEFL, IELTS, Duolingo DET, or Cambridge CAE test scores. Um, we also consider other exemptions. For example, if again your high school's primary language of instruction is English, if maybe you actually can submit the SAT or ACT, and if you score a certain like threshold or higher on the English sections, we will consider that as an exemption. But yeah, I would say for the most part, I think Nigerian students should be safe, and you don't really need to worry about that. But if that's something you're concerned about, if obviously just depending on your personal specific circumstances, if you want to just make sure that you already qualify for exemption from English proficiency, please let us know. We're happy to take a look at your transcripts, at kind of hearing about your academic history, where you attended high school, things like that, and we can definitely make a recommendation based on that.
Okay.
But I hope that kind of clears things up about test scores. So
Yes.
essentially, we don't require any kind of test scores, is
Okay.
the short
All right.
answer.
So thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. We
Yeah,
have
of
come to the
course.
end of the presentation because of the time. Time is against us. Uh, if you have any questions, so you can contact Adin Ahmad through his email. So here we come to the end of this presentation. Thank you so much, Adil, for your wonderful presentation. It's very educative. So this is we come to the end. Bye for now.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Education USA, and thank you all for attending. Very nice meeting you all.